They called it a rumor, nothing more than a story told by lifers to keep the nights from swallowing them whole. A whisper passed between the rows of cots, traded in secret during count, in the same tone used for ghost stories. They said there was a tunnel beneath Angola Prison, a passage carved through the earth, built long before any inmate ever stepped foot there. The guards laughed it off, the wardens ignored it, and the state called it folklore. But every legend starts with a fragment of truth. And at Angola, truth always bleeds through the cracks. Louisiana State Penitentiary, better known as Angola, has always been more than just a prison. It's a world trapped in time, a plantation-turned-fortress, where thousands of men live and die surrounded by the same fields their ancestors once worked as slaves. The air hums with heat and history. The walls creak with stories that no one wants to repeat. And deep beneath those endless cane fields, something has been breathing, quietly, patiently, waiting to be found. The story of the tunnel began decades ago, passed down from one generation of inmates to the next. The older ones swore it was built by convicts in the 1940s, a desperate escape route carved with stolen tools and bare hands. Others said it wasn't an escape route at all, that it was part of an old military project, sealed off before the prison ever expanded. Most people laughed, but some of the older guards didn't. They'd seen things during the night shifts that never made it into any logbook, tremors in the soil, lights that blinked under the dirt like fireflies trapped in concrete. They didn't talk about it. Not officially. In 1989, a storm flooded part of Angola's South Farm and collapsed one of the irrigation ditches. When the water cleared, workers found something strange, a concrete wall buried under the mud, with stairs leading down into darkness. The hole was sealed within hours. No one was allowed near it again. The warden at the time, James C. Waller, called it old infrastructure. But the next week, one of the men who found it was transferred out of Angola overnight. Another was sent to solitary for disrupting work procedures. It was as if the prison itself had tried to swallow what they'd seen. Years passed. The rumor grew teeth. Inmates said they could feel vibrations under their bunks late at night, like engines turning somewhere below. Some swore they could hear voices, faint, metallic echoes that rose through the pipes and concrete floors. When the lights flickered, they said it was the tunnel breathing. Even the guards began to avoid certain patrol routes. The laughter was gone. The jokes stopped. Then, in 2011, a man named Raymond Pike, a veteran corrections officer who had worked the same perimeter shift for 8 years, vanished without a trace. It was a calm night, no storms, no chaos. He made his last radio check at 1:42 a.m. and then, nothing. The cameras along his route were working, but the footage from that window was corrupted, a black screen for 7 minutes. When the system came back online, Pike was gone. His flashlight was found 3 days later, lying half-buried in the dirt beside the south fence. It was still on. The beam pointed toward the fields. His wife said he'd been different in the weeks before he disappeared. Quieter. Restless. He'd told her he kept hearing clanks underground, like someone striking metal with a hammer. When she asked what he thought it was, he just shook his head and said, "There's something under this place that shouldn't be there." No one ever saw him again. His body was never found. His file was closed. But the rumor came back stronger than ever. 5 years later, the prison's drainage systems were being replaced when a construction team hit reinforced concrete nearly 40 feet below the surface. When they broke through, they found a hollow space big enough for 2 men to walk side by side. The air that came out was cold, not damp or musty, but sterile, like a freezer left open. The foreman called it in. Within 2 hours, state officials ordered them off the site. The hole was sealed. The workers were reassigned. None of them spoke publicly, except for one who later told a local paper, off the record, whatever that was, it wasn't a drain. Not long after, photos began circulating, grainy shots of a concrete staircase, rusted rails, and a corridor sloping down into blackness. On one wall, someone had painted 3 faded letters in red, TZA. The image disappeared from every social media platform within a day. One of the photographers was questioned by law enforcement and later said his camera was confiscated for investigation. Nothing ever came of it. Officially, there was no tunnel. No stairs. No discovery. But something about the way the prison tightened security told everyone otherwise. Angola's oldest inmates said the land was cursed, that it had always been hiding something. Before the prison was built, the plantation's original owner had dug deep wells to store grain and water. When engineers later surveyed the land, they found chambers beneath the soil that didn't match the blueprints. They were deeper. Older. Reinforced with steel. No one could explain why. The official history of Angola skips that part. But old maps still exist, and on some of them, faint outlines show a network of structures stretching under the south fields. In the following years, more strange events unfolded. The earth near the field sometimes trembled, but seismologists found no activity. Animals avoided the southern perimeter, circling wide as if sensing something below. Guards began to report hearing what sounded like generators underground. A few even claimed to see mist rising from cracks in the dirt at night, glowing faintly red before disappearing when approached. Then came the night the lights flickered across the entire compound, not a power outage, but a rhythmic pulse. 1 second of light, one of dark, over and over again. And when the backup generators kicked in, several inmates swore they heard voices coming from the vents. The next morning, Warden told the press that electrical malfunctions are part of an aging system. But a week later, new fencing was installed around the southern field, the same area where Pike vanished. To the outside world, Angola carried on as usual, the largest maximum security prison in the United States, self-sustaining, self-contained, self-silent. But to those inside, something had changed. The air felt heavier. The nights grew longer. And the ground never stopped humming. The story was no longer a rumor. It was a warning, one the prison ignored until it was too late. Angola Prison, 18,000 acres of farmland, barbed wire, and forgotten history. To most of Louisiana, it's a fortress of order. But inside its walls, it's something else, a living thing with stories that refuse to die. The rumor of a tunnel started in 1989, when inmates working the sugarcane fields claimed they'd heard voices beneath the soil. At first, no one believed them. Then, when a section of the irrigation ditch collapsed after heavy rain, they found concrete steps, old, cracked, leading downward. The entrance was quickly sealed, and the warden at the time, James C. Waller, ordered silence. But silence has a way of spreading faster than truth. By the early 2000s, the story had returned, this time whispered in hushed tones inside Camp J, the unit built for Angola's most violent and unmanageable men. They said the tunnel wasn't built by inmates. They said it was discovered by them. Candle the disappearance. In 2011, a guard named Raymond Pike vanished during his night patrol near the south perimeter. No break in the fence. No tire tracks. No radio signal after 1:42 a.m. His flashlight was found 3 days later, lying in the dirt, battery still working, lens cracked. The ground nearby was soft and disturbed, as if something underneath had caved. The official report said Pike wandered off-site. But everyone at Angola knew he was the kind of guard who never made mistakes. He'd worked that shift for 8 years, always on time, always by the book. His wife told local reporters he'd been worried about something weeks before he disappeared. He'd mentioned hearing noises through the soil, metallic clanks, like pipes being struck from below. When she asked what it was, he just said, "There's something under this place that shouldn't be there." Gear the hidden blueprint. In 2016, Angola underwent a partial renovation of its drainage systems. Contractors found sealed concrete barriers embedded 40 feet below the old sugarcane fields. Behind one was a hollow cavity that didn't appear on any schematics. When workers broke through, they found a long corridor sloping downward, walls reinforced with rebar, air-stale but breathable. The project was halted immediately. Prison officials claimed it was an old stone drain. But 2 of the contractors quit the next day, refusing to return. One told local media, off record. Whatever that was, it wasn't built for water. Puzzle piece: the Forgotten Project. Historical archives revealed that in the 1940s, before Angola became a maximum security prison, parts of the land were leased to the Army Corps of Engineers. Blueprints from that period referenced a subsurface containment structure. No explanation, no follow-up. The markings matched the exact coordinates of Pike's last patrol route. And there was one more note in the file, a stamped code at the bottom corner, div 47T.Z.A. For most people, that meant nothing. But to anyone who had studied the Terenza files, it meant the network had roots deeper than anyone imagined. By late 2016, the sealed corridor beneath Angola had become an unspoken legend among the staff. Everyone knew about it, no one talked about it. The warden, Charles Denham, quietly ordered all construction suspended and reassigned the maintenance crew that had found the cavity. But the damage was done. Someone had filmed it. A short, shaky video began circulating through encrypted inmate phones. It showed a narrow concrete passage lit by a single dangling bulb. On the wall, faint red spray paint formed 3 characters, TZA. The footage vanished within hours, but by then, copies were already on dark web forums labeled "The Tunnel at Angola." That was when the federal government stepped in. Gear the investigation that never happened. Officially, the Department of Corrections denied the tunnel existed. Unofficially, 3 black SUVs entered Angola's South Gate 2 days later, carrying a team of plainclothed agents who stayed for less than 24 hours. No one knew their names or agencies. When they left, they took the camera footage, blueprints, and, according to one worker, something sealed in a metal crate. In the days that followed, portions of the field were fenced off under the guise of soil stability repairs. But guards posted there at night claimed the ground shook. Just faintly, like something shifting deep below. Candle: the second discovery. 6 months later, another collapse occurred, this time during a thunderstorm that flooded Angola's south sector. A tractor operator named Eli Grant found his machine sinking into a mud pocket. When crews dug him out, they uncovered a concrete vault door, half buried and rusted shut. Stamped across the center was the same marking found in Terenza and North Point. Property of Division 47. When the maintenance crew opened it, a rush of cold air spilled out. The space below wasn't a tunnel, it was a chamber. Lined with reinforced walls, the room stretched into darkness, wider than the prison yard above. Old floodlights flickered to life as if triggered by motion. On one wall hung a steel plaque. Containment Unit 04, Meridian Extension. Inside the dust, they found empty restraints bolted to the floor, and dozens of identification tags, each stamped TZA followed by numbers. Some were decades old. Others were recent. Open file folder: the files no one claimed. That night, Warden Denham received a flash drive delivered by hand, no return address, no message. The drive contained scans of government memos dated between 1973 and 1998, labeled Joint Behavioral Research, Site Meridian. The project outline described a collaboration between the U.S. Bureau of Prisons and Vanguardia Systems, the same contractor from the Warden's secret. The objective: to develop subterranean sensory conditioning environments adaptable for long-term containment. The document included coordinates linking multiple sites: North Point, Colorado, Meridian, Nevada, Terenza, Sonora, and Angola, Louisiana. At the bottom, a chilling line: all nodes to remain synchronized. Division 47 maintains oversight. Brain the recordings. Among the digital files were audio logs, static-filled transmissions between technicians operating Containment Unit 04. One voice, clearly older and calm, repeated the same phrase across multiple entries. "They hear us through the soil. Keep the turbines running. Don't let them surface." Another voice replied. Project continuity confirmed. Meridian pulse aligned. Angola stable. Then, in the final log, a female voice, frightened, whispering, "Something's moving down here. It's not the machines. It's..." The recording cut to static. Red triangle pointed down the warden's dilemma. Warden Denham tried to report the discovery to state authorities. Within 48 hours, he was relieved of duty. His replacement arrived the next morning with federal credentials and an order to reinstate operational silence. By the time journalists requested access, the chamber had already been resealed with concrete. The fields above were replanted. And the new warden's first press statement was a single sentence. Angola remains secure. There is no tunnel. But inside the prison, the whispers started again. Inmates in the lower cell blocks claimed they could hear faint metallic bangs beneath their floors late at night, rhythmic, mechanical, alive. Guards began reporting nightmares, visions of corridors, red lights, and voices reciting numbers. One correctional officer resigned, leaving a note on his locker that said only, "The ground hums. Hold the connection." When Maya Ortiz, now a fugitive investigator after the North Point exposure, received the leaked Angola files, she noticed something terrifying. Each containment unit across all Division 47 facilities transmitted at the exact same time every night, 2:17 a.m. And all shared a single encrypted identifier, node_ANG04. It wasn't a tunnel. It was a conduit. A network beneath the soil designed to link every hidden site together, the arteries of a system that was never supposed to wake up. And Angola was its heart. By early 2024, the field south of Angola looked peaceful again, a sea of green under the Louisiana sun, the soil freshly turned for spring planting. But the calm was a lie. Beneath the surface, something ancient was waking up. The first sign came from the prison's power station. At 2:17 a.m., the monitors flashed white, then red. The ground shuddered, not like an earthquake but like a heartbeat, deep, steady, deliberate. For 13 seconds, every electronic lock in the facility glitched open. Then, just as suddenly, everything reset. Inmates screamed in the darkness. Guards reported hearing metal scraping against stone beneath the fields. And from the far edge of the compound, a red glow began to rise through the soil. Hear the sound beneath the soil. When maintenance crews went to inspect the power lines the next morning, they found the ground still warm. Thermal imaging revealed a perfect circle of heat exactly where the Containment Unit 04 chamber had been sealed. A faint humming echoed from the dirt, steady, mechanical, and in sync with the facility's generator cycles. One worker compared it to a turbine spinning miles underground. That night, the power went out again. And this time, the red glow returned, pulsing rhythmically every 7 seconds. The same frequency detected at Terenza, North Point, and Meridian. Candle the man who returned. 3 days later, a security patrol reported movement near the southern fence. A man in a prison uniform, barefoot and dazed, was wandering the field. He matched the description of Raymond Pike, the guard who vanished 13 years earlier. He was alive. But something about him was wrong. His eyes were unfocused, his skin pale and cold. When they brought him inside, he wouldn't speak, only mutter one phrase over and over. "It's not under us anymore. It's inside us." Medical tests found no explanation. His fingerprints were authentic. But his internal clock, his circadian rhythm, was running 7 seconds slower than normal human time. Puzzle piece the signal. That same week, shortwave radio operators across the Gulf picked up a repeating transmission. 7 pulses of static followed by a whisper. When slowed down, the audio formed words. Division 47, sync complete. Maya Ortiz, still tracking the network from hiding, intercepted a data burst sent from Angola's power grid to an unregistered satellite over the Atlantic. It carried only one packet of readable text. Node 04 reconnected, human data continuity verified. That meant someone, or something, had reopened the chamber from below. Warning the breach. On April 9, 2024, at 2:17 a.m., Angola's night shift reported a breach alarm in the restricted southern sector. When they arrived, the ground had caved in, exposing a yawning pit wide enough to swallow a bus. Inside, concrete walls glowed faintly with heat, as if the tunnel itself was alive. A drone was sent down. Its camera flickered, then stabilized. What it recorded shouldn't have been possible. Miles of corridor stretching downward, not dirt, not rock, but steel, lined with what looked like nerve-like cables pulsing red light. In the distance, shapes moved, too slow to be human. The drone feed cut abruptly. When the operator replayed the footage frame by frame, the final image before the blackout showed a figure standing in the tunnel, facing the camera. It looked like Raymond Pike, but his eyes glowed faintly red. Red triangle pointed down the Reawakening. Within 48 hours, the entire southern sector of Angola was evacuated under the pretense of a gas leak. A convoy of federal vehicles entered the property. No one who went in came out. At sunset, a column of smoke rose from the field. Witnesses in nearby towns said they heard a low hum, followed by silence so complete it made their ears ring. By morning, the field had been leveled and covered in fresh concrete. But that night, residents living miles away reported their lights flickering, all at exactly 2:17 a.m. Brain the final transmission. Weeks later, radio hobbyists recorded one last burst from the Division 47 network. Project Meridian fully synchronized. Angola node absorbed. Containment obsolete. Human continuity autonomous. Then static. No more signals were ever detected. But the effects didn't end there. Across the state, small prison facilities began reporting inexplicable power drains and bursts of electromagnetic interference. Every reading matched the same pattern, 7 pulses, then silence. It wasn't a tunnel anymore. It was a system. A living network spanning states, maybe continents. And under every participating facility, something was still pulsing. They called it an escape tunnel, a story too wild to believe. But what if it was never meant to lead out? What if it led in? Angola was supposed to be the end of the line. But beneath its soil, the walls didn't keep men in, they kept something else contained. Something that needed power. Silence. Obedience. Now, the hum returns every night at the same time. The guards pretend not to hear it. The inmates cover their ears. And the new warden says the fields are quiet. But if you drive past Angola at 2:17 a.m., roll your window down. You might feel it. That vibration in your chest, too rhythmic to be the wind. Too steady to be a heartbeat. Some say it's the generators. Some say it's the ghosts of the ones buried there. But maybe, just maybe, it's the system itself. Breathing. Waiting. The tunnel was never an escape plan. It was a warning. Soft metallic echo fades into static, then silence. The Blood and Justice logo appears, glowing red through the dark. Blood and Justice. Where the earth remembers everything we try to bury.